Today is Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Last night, Donald Trump gave a State of the Union speech. Damn, how many times did he lie? We have them. We're going to show you the lie and then show you the truth. Oh, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Not the one white conservative evangelicals like. In a surprising move, Senator Mitt Romney votes to convict Donald Trump for abuse of power. Also, speaking of abuse of power, Texas Southern University Board of Regents, they voted last night to fire President Austin Lane. We'll give you the latest on that. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom grants a posthumous pardon to openly gay civil rights leader Bayard Rustin. And also, Wendy Williams goes in on Jay-Z and Beyonce for not standing for the National Anthem at the Super Bowl. Y'all remember the last time I had to deal with Wendy. I shall do it again. And Michigan State University apologizes for their hanging black dolls display. Oh yeah, we got a jam-packed show. It's time to bring the funk right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, all kinds of talk and drama today after Donald Trump gave the State of the Union last night before the House and the Senate, of course. In his 80-minute speech, he said a whole lot of stuff. And so we're going to go ahead and break this whole thing down. So what I want to do is go ahead and set it up. Are y'all ready? Because, you know, whenever we, all right, so please, can we get it right now? Because I'm about to go right into this whole deal. Because I need to set up all the people who are watching. So, of course, this was the third State of the Union speech, the last one before the election in November. And so different folks, different shows talked about, how strong it was. And you had the pageantry. And he saluted the Tuskegee Airmen. He gave a Medal of Freedom to that racist Rush Limbaugh. And then it was like all this other stuff. But it also comes down to, that's all of the optics. But it also comes down to, what actually are the facts and what do they amount to? And so since you don't have a stinger ready to find, play the first one. First comment by Trump.
I am thrilled to report to you tonight that our economy is the best it has ever been. Our military is completely rebuilt, with its power being unmatched anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. From the instant I took office, I moved rapidly to revive the U.S. economy.
Stop right there. Okay. Stop. First of all, he said it's the most powerful economy we had in history. That's actually a lie. You've had other presidents who've had greater GDP growth than Donald Trump since he took over as president 3 years ago. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, you can dance around with it, but it's a fact. Now go ahead and play the next one.
Slashing a record number of job-killing regulations, enacting historic and record-setting tax cuts, and fighting for fair and reciprocal trade agreements. The unemployment rate...
Okay, stop right there. He talked about, again, the economy. Do you also remember what the economy was when he took over as president? Under President Barack Obama, you lost more than 7 points off the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate has gone down 1.2 points since Donald Trump has been president. So it's a little hard to say you inherited a bad economy when you've actually had 11 years of actual economic growth. Not only that, in the last 3 years of President Barack Obama's tenure, more jobs were created in America than the first 3 years of Donald Trump's tenure. Folks, those are simply basic facts. Press play.
African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans has reached the lowest levels in history.
Well, there actually was a point when we were all unemployed, but we know that was also during the period of slavery. What Donald Trump also did not talk about when you talk about economic for African Americans, black home ownership rates are at its lowest since the Fair Housing Act was passed in 1968. I've repeatedly asked this administration, where's your federal housing plan? One doesn't exist. Press play.
African American youth unemployment has reached an all-time low. African American.
We had Bill Spriggs on our show just a couple of weeks ago. Who is he? Of course, Howard University economics professor, former head of the economics department at Howard University, and a top economist for the AFL-CIO. Also not true when it comes to black youth unemployment. Again, I don't understand why you would put things in a speech that are very basic that people can actually fact check. Go.
Poverty has declined to the lowest rate ever recorded.
Donald Trump talked about poverty and food stamps. One of the reasons why you have few people on food stamps is because they changed the regulations when it came to work requirements. And so you can't just say more people off of food stamps and poverty has decreased because you actually kicked them off because of your regulations. It's not because of economic growth. It's because you actually changed the rule. Y'all got any more?
The unemployment rate for women reached the lowest level in almost 70 years, and last year women filled 72% of all new jobs added. The veterans' unemployment rate dropped to a record low. The unemployment rate for disabled Americans has reached an all-time low. We are advancing with unbridled optimism and lifting our citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed very, very high. Since my election, we have created 7 million new jobs, 5 million more than government experts projected during the previous administration. Under the last administration, more than 10 million people were added to the food stamp rolls. Under my administration, 7 million Americans have come off food stamps and 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare.
Now, hold up. I told y'all about that one. We know that's a lie. But you know also what was missing the $30 billion we've given to farmers because of his tariffs? I wonder if, I'm sorry, we don't call that welfare. We call those subsidies. Go ahead.
Years under the last administration, over 300,000 working-age people dropped out of the workforce. In just 3 years of my administration, 3.5 million people, working-age people, have joined the workforce.
Like I already told you, last 3 years of Obama, more jobs were created in those last 3 years than the first 3 years of Donald Trump's presidency. That's just a fact. Press play.
Since my election, the net worth of the bottom half of wage earners has increased by 47%, 3 times faster than the increase for the top 1%.
Do y'all know how much money the top 1% saved with Trump's tax cuts? Hell, that really ain't hard. Play.
After decades of flat and falling incomes, wages are rising fast, and wonderfully, they are rising fastest for low-income workers who have seen a 16% pay increase since my election.
This the same party that fights $15 for a minimum wage? I thought so. Go.
This is a blue-collar boom. Our roaring economy has, for the first time...
If it's a blue-collar boom, why is it that we saw a decrease in manufacturing jobs by 12,000 in the month of December, even though last night he claimed manufacturing actually is increasing? Not true. Go ahead, press play.
...ever given many former prisoners the ability to get a great job and a fresh start. This second chance at life is made possible because we passed landmark criminal justice reform into law. Everybody said that criminal justice reform couldn't be done, but I got it done, and the people in this room got it done. All of those millions of people with 401ks and pensions are doing far better than they have ever done before, with increases of 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100% and even more. Thanks to our bold regulatory reduction campaign, the United States has become the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world, by far.
Oh, my God. Y'all, do y'all know when America became the world's top energy producer? In 2012. It happened under President Barack Obama. It was not because of Trump, and it was not because of his regulations. It literally happened in 2012. All right, let's go to my panel. Joining me right now is Robert Patillo. Glad to have him here from Atlanta, Executive Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition Peachtree Street Project. Also, we have Angela Stanton-King, founder and president of the American King Foundation, attorney A. Scott Bolden, former chair of the National Bar Association Political Action Committee. Robert, here's the deal. If there are things that you can stand up and take credit for, you do so. But you don't stand there and lie and have folks easily fact check it. We didn't become the world's #1 energy producer because he became president. It literally happened in 2012.
Well, I'll say there are good and bad parts of the speech. There were the parts that I really thought were strong and powerful. I like seeing Republicans spending that much time reaching out to African-American voters. There needs to be competition for the black vote.
How did they reach out?
Well, between the Tuskegee Airmen, the young woman who got the scholarship to go to college, talking so deeply about African-American unemployment, the opportunity zones discussion he had, reentry programs for the Second Chance Act. So he spent a lot of time talking about the black community and black voters, and whether it's ingenuous or not, the point is that both parties need to be competing for the black vote, because when both parties compete for the black vote, you get better policy initiatives coming out of it.
So I'm trying to understand. He talked about one young girl getting a scholarship, yet he also wants to cut $1.9 billion from Pell Grants. So
hold on.
No, I'm asking, but if you want to celebrate one young black girl getting a scholarship, but you want to cut $1.9 billion from Pell Grants, that's where most African Americans get funds to go to college.
And this is why I say there's good and bad in the speech, which is on the one hand, we have Republicans competing for our votes. On the other hand, we do have to ensure that we hold them accountable for the promises they are making. So you can't talk about the importance of black education and also talk about cutting Pell Grants. He also talked about fully funding Social Security, which he's completely not done. He talked about...
No, hold on, not only that. Hold up, and that's what I'm going to bring in Angela. Angela, he talked about fully funding Social Security. He literally is requesting cuts of billions of dollars in Social Security. He also said in his speech, protecting when it came to pre-existing conditions, that's a lie. I mean, it's just a flat-out lie. They're in court trying to end the Affordable Care Act,
exactly,
and there's no health plan. So what I'm trying to understand is, if you want to give a speech and you want to laud things that you've done, fine, but don't lie about stuff that you have not done.
Well, first of all, in regards to the speech, I want to back up a little bit in regards to the little girl when you say it's one little black girl. He also asked Congress to pass 1 million scholarships for 1 million children. That's also in the State of the Union.
But if you cut
if it had been a white girl, we wouldn't say nothing. No. If it had been a white girl, none of us would have something to say. It's because it was a black girl.
If you're cutting to, first of all, here's a piece here.
Why is it cutting?
I've interviewed. Here's a piece. Because he wants to cut. Let me just read it right here.
Where is it?
Donald Trump, I'm reading
Where
it
you
here.
reading this
I'm
from?
reading this here. Now follow me here. Donald Trump wants to requested to Congress to rescind $1.9 billion from the Pell Grant program to redirect the money to NASA. Now, if most African Americans, if you go to HBCUs, okay, first of all, most HBCUs, 85 to 90% of their budgets come from student aid. You cut Pell Grants, you're actually cutting opportunities. So why would you call for 1 million scholarships, but you're cutting Pell Grants when that's actually how folks are going to school?
But he also permanently funded HBCUs. Let's not pass that
No,
part. Yes,
stop.
he
No,
did.
no,
Yes,
stop.
he did.
Hold
We
up,
can
hold
fact
up,
check
hold
this.
up,
Not
hold
only that, he
hold up,
also
hold up.
lifted the federal
What was
ban
the
against
number?
faith-based HBCUs.
What was the number? No, please tell the public what the number was.
For publicly funded, for
No,
funding
what you said where you say
HBCUs,
permanently funded. Tell people the
it
number.
was 200, either 250 million or 250 billion, possibly.
No,
I
it
don't
wasn't
know exactly
billion.
which one it was.
It was 255 million.
Okay.
Now, for the people at home.
How much did Obama give
No, for the people at home, hold on. 255 million.
per year?
Hold up. Cutting 1.9 billion per year. 255 million, 1.9 billion. That ain't even a comparison.
What I'm saying is,
that's
first
the
of all,
equivalent of saying
but how do
$20
we know what you're saying is
and
factual?
$20,000.
How do we know what you're saying is factual?
How do I know? Okay, would you
What
like
are
for
you
me to
reading
read it?
from?
First of all, I'm reading the article from Forbes.com, not a liberal publication.
Wait a minute. It's not about if it's a liberal publication
Okay,
or not.
okay,
So
I'm sorry. Henry, go to my iPad. Here is a story, May 2019, from the Associated Press. Headline, Trump targets Pell Grant money for NASA's budget boost.
So has he
Would you
removed
like
this money?
Would you like
Have
another
they voted
source?
to remove this money? Has he done it?
Then what?
Has he taken that money away from HBCUs?
He's taking money away from the Pentagon to build a wall. Hold up, I'm sorry.
We're going back to
That's-
HBCUs.
No, hold up.
Has
Which is
he
another
taken
lie
the
last night.
1.9 million away from them?
No, first of all, they're not from HBCUs. It's Pell Grant
Has
dollars.
he done it? Has he taken
He
it?
requested Congress to cut the money.
Okay.
So my point is this here. Why then would you talk about, hey, let's do 1 million scholarships?
No, he didn't.
When you're cutting. No, he asked, you said.
Yeah, he did ask
Congress
them to
do
pass
it.
$1 million, but he funded HBCUs. Let's
No.
be clear. And he also
No.
lifted the federal ban that was against
Hold
HBCUs that Obama put in place.
Let's be real clear what was passed.
Okay.
What was passed when it came to the issue of STEM dollars. We had Congresswoman Alma Adams on this. 1 second.
And he also
Hold up, one
permanently
second.
placed the
1 second.
HBCU
We had
initiative
Congresswoman
in the White
We had
House.
Congresswoman Alma Adams and Congressman Mark Walters, Republican, on this show discussing that. It was Senator Lamar Alexander that held that particular up. So it's not like that was a creation of Trump. That was already a program that existed that lapsed.
Y'all don't want to give the president credit for signing these executive orders. Trump doesn't have to
No,
sign
that wasn't
anything.
an executive order.
He did sign an executive order to fund HBCUs.
Angela,
Do you want to fact check this?
Angela, what was passed by Congress, that was passed by Congress. It
And
wasn't an executive order.
He signed an executive order for HBCUs, giving them $250 million in infrastructure. That was last year. This was something else that he's did on top of that, which
but
was
you're talking
separate.
about, but
and he's
again, though,
also placed
so let me do
HBCU
this here.
initiative inside the
But
White
let me do this
House.
here. Let me add the $250 million
this is the
infrastructure.
president that don't care
to
about
the
black people.
$255 million. Now we had $500 million. But if you're trying to cut $2 billion in Pell Grants, I think, Scott, that the $2 billion in Pell Grants is actually going to help far more people than 500, because that's actually 4 times
Well,
as much being
why are
cut.
they saying he
Go right
wanna
here.
do it?
Hold on 1 second.
Well, sitting on the board of trustees for Morehouse College, those Pell Grant cuts and the other cuts from this administration are far more difficult to keep kids in college at historical black colleges and African Americans at other colleges. So there's no comparison. Secondly, given the state of historical black colleges, $250 million for infrastructure for 100 historical black colleges on an annual basis is a drop in the bucket, because many of them haven't put a lot of money of their own, based on their own fundraising, into infrastructure. One of the things about Morehouse, it's a gift and a curse. The movie with the African American women who were the first at NASA to send the astronaut to the moon, they used Morehouse facilities because how aged they looked and were. And they compared it to in the 50s or 60s when this movie was done. And so you've got to break down these numbers when you talk about doing stuff for African American students, historical black colleges, because those numbers matter. the differentials matter and the comparatives matter because we deal with it every day, every couple of months on the board, not just at Morehouse, but even the top historical black colleges.
But when you say 1.9 billion he's trying to cut, is that just for HBCUs or all colleges? Y'all trying to make it seem like he's just trying to take it away from black people. That's not true.
First of all, you can't use they.
Let's be true.
No, hold up. I was very specific.
Are you saying he's cutting that from HBCUs?
Let me defend. I say it very clearly. 1.9 billion in Pell Grants.
So for all of the universities across the nation, it's not just black people.
Well, first of all, I said that.
It's not just black people.
And what I said is, out of the folks who do get Pell Grants, as a disproportionate number of African Americans. And what I did say is that HBCUs, unlike traditional or predominantly white institutions, have a greater reliance on students getting financial aid.
But he funded HBCUs. I haven't read anything about him funding any other colleges.
Hold on. This is what I think we should do.
You don't think other colleges get research dollars and development dollars?
I'm sure they do, but I'm just talking about the initiative for HBCUs.
Oh, my God. Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, but it's a drop in the bucket.
Why would a racist give black people?
My point about last night.
Hell, racists where slaves fed black people.
Exactly.
Why would a racist put an HBCU initiative in the White House?
Robert, one second, Robert's talking.
It's called white guilt.
My point about the good and bad of the speech.
Robert is talking, folks.
We should give him credit for what he's done. We should hold him accountable for the things he wants to do in the future and work towards getting the best public policy coming out of that. So, yes, we can give him credit for the money he's given to HBCUs. We can also still criticize him for the cuts to Pell Grants and understand that we're going to balance the budget. Now we're running a $1 trillion year-over-year deficit.
Now, hold up. I'm sorry.
$23
what did you say?
A $1 trillion.
Because I ain't heard none of the Tea Party or the Freedom Caucus about you know all them deficit hawks? I mean, it's like they just just went away.
We're running a $23 trillion national debt, most of that owed to China. So when we're talking about the things that need to get cut to balance the budget, we can't then say we have a $1.5 trillion tax cut for billionaires, but we also need to take away your Pell Grants because we have to balance the budget.
Or Medicaid, or Social Security, which is what they're talking about doing.
Exactly. This is what I mean about having a balanced view. Yes, I am glad the president put more money into HBCUs, but let's build on that and find out what we can do going forward instead of seeing these things as being a completely partisan evil.
Roland,
when you mention Bill, this is what I talk about when I talk about the shell game, okay? And this is why when you're examining what someone does, you have to look at the totality of what someone does. So, perfect example. Donald Trump last night talked about the First Step Act and assisting people who are getting out. But while he is saying that, his Department of Justice is also telling U.S. attorneys, pursue the most number of years you can get to put people in prison. Right. Rescinding what Eric Holder said is your promotions are not going to be based upon how many people you put in jail and how many years they get in prison. That's one. While he's over here touting the First Step Act, he's also criticizing the progressive district attorneys who are actually doing more to deal with mass incarceration. When you talk about Larry Krasner in Philadelphia, Kim Foxx in Chicago, Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore, Aaron Ayala in Florida, and I can go on and on and on. You're talking about, again, First Step Act, mass incarceration, criminal justice reform, which led to the Department of Justice, go back to using private federal prisons. You talk about...
What's wrong with private prisons?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, let's have that discussion.
Hold up. I'm not done. I am not done. I am not done.
You can't tell me.
Then he talks about, again, then again, the First Step Act. But then over here, you also say we're not going to pursue federal consent decrees against police departments in terms of how they interact with people with police brutality, and they try to stop it in Baltimore, try to stop it in Chicago, and he has said to law enforcement, we are no longer going to do those because of that. So the shell game is, I've done this, but I've also done all of this, which I don't want y'all to really talk about. That right there is an issue. And so if we want to talk about the whole picture,
Let's talk
or
about
as Paul Harvey said,
Let's talk about
now the rest of the story.
That's right.
Let's talk about this.
Go ahead.
Now, first of all, in regards to the First Step Act, what the president did was historic. Now, y'all claim he's a racist. He did not have to sign that order. He could have left all of those people in prison. He could have been just like Obama and not got it
mutually
passed.
exclusive?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, hold on.
When we
Hold
talk
on, stop
about...
right there. You said like Obama didn't get it passed. Who
Exactly.
blocked Obama from getting
Wait a minute, who blocked Trump from
No.
building the wall?
Who
That
blocked
goes both
criminal
ways.
justice
It
reform?
goes both ways.
No, actually it doesn't.
Obama
this is
passed
important.
everything else he wanted to pass.
Angela, here's why
Who
you're
blocked
wrong.
it?
He passed
Who blocked
everything.
it?
And who blocked Trump
Angela,
from building the
Angela,
wall?
you're
protecting
wrong.
To make it
illegal
an answer,
immigration?
he
You're
blocked it
wrong when
under-
the Republicans were in control of the House
Exactly.
and the Senate for his first
Exactly.
years. They could have passed the wall. But I'm going back to this here.
But they didn't.
I'm going back to this here. You want to say what Obama didn't do. Who blocked criminal justice reform under President
It
Barack
was
Obama?
not Trump.
Who blocked it?
It wasn't Trump.
But who blocked it?
It wasn't Trump.
But who blocked it?
It don't matter. It
Yes,
wasn't
it does.
Trump.
Yes, it does.
'Cause
Trump
see,
get
what-
blocked too.
No, no, no.
In every
No, no, no.
presidency,
Who
that
blocked-
happens
say it
in
again,
every
Robert.
presidency.
It was Chuck Grassley.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was
no.
Jeff Sessions. It was Tom
Exactly.
Cotton. It
Jeff
was Ted
Sessions
Kennedy.
did it.
So you
okay, are
can't
these the same
whine
people that
the
came
former
back and
Attorney General.
But you can't
But what
whine
does that got to do with
and say,
Trump?
Well,
What does that
Obama
got to do with
didn't
Trump?
do
Got
this.
everything.
It don't have
You
nothing to
don't
do
want
with
to own
him.
up that your party blocked it.
Okay, and my party
but-
passed it.
Who?
Trump.
No, you're actually.
He signed
actually,
it.
your party didn't.
He
pass
signed it. He signed the
Actually,
executive
your
order.
party
Did
didn't
Trump sign
pass
the
it.
executive order or not?
No, first
Did he
of all,
have to?
Angela, let me help you again.
Did Trump have to
Here's
sign
the
the
deal. No, let me
executive
help
order?
you. The First Step Act was not an executive order. The First Step Act is called
Exactly.
an act because it's an actual law.
President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order on December 18th, 2018, putting the First Step Act into law.
Angela, listen to me, please. If you're gonna come on any television show, have the basic facts together.
Well, I want you to have your facts,
Angela,
too.
the first. Let me just walk you through. The First Step Act started in the House.
Don't matter.
It was being shepherded
Who
through
signed
Angela.
it?
Excuse me,
I
Angela.
was there when he
Excuse
signed
me,
it.
Angela. Just
Would
listen.
it have gone
Angela,
through without
listen.
President Trump
Angela,
signing
listen.
it? No.
It was shepherded through by Congressman Hakeem Jeffries.
Okay.
After it was passed in the House,
Okay.
it then went over to the United States Senate. That's where Senator Cory Booker, Senator Kamala Harris.
No.
Excuse
no,
me.
no, no,
I'm
no.
done. Excuse
No,
me.
no,
I'm
no,
not
no.
done.
Okay, go ahead. We
Okay,
gonna speak
you
facts,
just
but they
listen
voted against
to the
it,
facts.
clearly. Okay.
Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Cory Booker, Senator Chuck Grassley, Senator Dick Durbin all said
Doug Collins.
these are Doug Collins is not in the Senate. He's a congressman in
but
the
he
House.
still has something
no,
to do
he's
with the
in the
First Step
House.
Act as well.
If you're gonna come on talking about it, get your facts straight.
Okay, but
so
Kamala
here's what
and Cory
happened.
voted
But
against it.
here's what happened.
So they didn't want black people
here's-
out of jail.
Will you stop?
I'm just saying.
Here's what happened. They said these things have to happen. The House version was light when it came to, they were only like, well, let's just do sentencing reform. It was Durbin saying this is a non-starter. The bill was changed in the Senate. That's what took place. Now, did Harris and Booker vote for it in the end? No.
Of course
Were the
not.
changes made? Yes. Were there Black Caucus members who were telling them also, well, changes need to be made? Yes. Then it went to, once it got passed, then it went back to the House, they reconciled, then it goes to the president. But you can't sit here and say, so one,
when it got
wasn't
to the
an
president,
executive order.
when it got to the president, did the president have to sign it into law?
No, he didn't have to sign it.
Exactly. So we're gonna give him his credit for signing it into law.
He
Because
signed
we
a
know
bi-
that it
he
support-
signed a
we know
bipartisan
90%
he signed
did not have
a
to,
bipartisan
though. But he didn't
criminal
have to.
justice reform
But
bill.
the white racists don't have to let
And
black
by the
people out of
way,
jail.
and by the but first of all,
do both.
He doesn't have to, though.
Exclusive.
Right.
He doesn't have to.
Scott, go ahead,
He
Scott.
doesn't have to.
Some
Scott,
of
go
the
ahead.
greatest racists in American history and conservatives have given money to the UNCF, i.e. the Koch brothers. It's called white guilt very often.
What
And
is
to
he
protect
guilty
your
of?
white, they're guilty of being racist.
Why?
They're guilty
He's
of having
guilty of
conservative
being
policies
racist. This
that
man been
affect
helping black people ever since we knew him.
and make it very difficult for black people to matriculate in this country.
Nobody
So
hated
it's
him
called
until he
white
became a
guilt.
Republican president. Everybody was cool with him before he became a
Here's my
Republican
issue.
president.
No,
Here's my
actually, with him and
with
Melania
the
were
speech.
birthers in 2011.
Exactly.
It's a whole bunch of black
But
folks
here's the
that
problem,
appreciate
the real
that.
problem
Scott, go
with
ahead.
the
You're
So,
right.
well,
Scott,
Jesse
Scott's
Jackson,
talking. Go ahead, Scott.
all the
Scott
rest
is
of them.
talking. Go ahead, Scott.
The speech, you know, I want every president that has good economic numbers to be able to speak on it and to give the report. But when you, as you said, Roland, when you got an economy that's rolling, The problem with this president is he didn't say it was Roland. He always compared it back to prior presidents or Barack Obama.
I mean, he said it was awful.
Right, it was
Everybody does
obsessed with it.
Well, can we talk about the black-
1 second, Scott's talking. 1 second, Scott's talking.
This was the
Then you
biggest
can make your
problem.
point, then Robert.
This was the biggest problem under the Obama administration. The GOP complained when he was president because he didn't clean up their jacked up economy fast enough or good enough. Remember, he inherited an awful economy from a GOP president. Let's just be real
Losing
clear.
500,000 jobs per month.
Exactly.
I remember it well.
Now, these 11 years of growth, Barack Obama's administration certainly had everything to do with that. The last 3 years, this administration
And the
ought
growth
to take
started
credit.
in June of 2010. Go ahead. I'm
Great.
sorry.
So this president ought to take credit for continuing that growth. But he doesn't do that. He says it's the greatest of all time, and basically the Barack administration and prior administrations did literally nothing. That hyperbole, those false superlatives, is what's troubling about this president, which is why the speaker tore up the speech, because it was a litany of more lies
Okay.
to add to the 16,000 he's told in the last 3 years.
Okay, so can I
That's
say
the problem.
I think that Nancy Pelosi was very petty for tearing up the speech because, first of all, the man already gave the speech.
President
to the
was
entire
petty
nation.
for not shaking her
You
hand.
have to, why would you shake a hand of somebody that's trying to remove you from office?
Well,
But
she's not trying to do it. She
ripping up a
fought
speech,
against that. But
Ripping
anyway,
up a speech
So hold on,
after it's
hold on.
already
Speech
been
up.
delivered to the nation.
So I'm second.
You're not
So-
stopping anybody
so
from hearing
you
it. But this is what I
defend
want to
him not
say.
shaking her hand,
Why did you
but
have to shake her
but
hand?
you're
Would
upset
you
that she
shake
tore
her
the
hand?
speech.
Right.
That was so petty.
No,
But it's a huge difference because the speech was about the people. It wasn't about the president.
Hold on 1 second,
what?
But
Scott.
the speech was
Actually,
about
Angela,
the people that were honored. We're talking about the little black
Angela,
girl.
litany
We're
of
talking about
lies.
the
Actually,
veterans.
Angela, what I can also
So
show
you
you,
go- let me get my point.
No, hold
Let
up.
me get my
I'm
point,
gonna say
but
this.
you won't let me
I'm gonna
talk.
say this, and you can make this point.
Okay, go ahead.
I do recall there being a president who was respectful of a Republican Speaker of the House,
Mm-hmm.
who was also blocking many things that he did, and see, he still had decency to shake their hand.
You think she's
Exactly.
respectful?
Who?
You think Nancy Pelosi has been
Like
respectful?
I said, you also had a Republican
about-
who yelled, "You
Hold on,
lie,"
first of all,
and Obama
Right.
was still respectful.
They have been
So
trying
go
to
ahead and make
impeach
your
this
point.
man ever since he got in office. I'm not even gonna go there. But here's the thing: what I want to talk about, the point that you made about the food stamps, and you talk about them kicking people off food stamps. Let's be clear, because AOC and a lot of Democrats have lied about this. These are able-bodied people. Those food stamps were not taken from anybody that have children. These are people that are able to work. Now, if you work part-time, you can still get the governments. Now, me, I'm a mama. I got 3 sons. They grown. I'm not taking care of no lazy person that does not want to work. There is nothing wrong with forcing people who are able to work to provide for themselves. Now, with the little girl that was given a scholarship, what I don't like about my people is that we have more hate for the president that'll keep us hating him instead of celebrating them. Just like with Alice
Celebrating who?
Johnson. Hold on, just like with Alice Johnson. We're more mad at the fact that President Trump freed her than we are happy that she's free.
I'm not mad.
Just like with the little girl,
glad she was
Janiyah
free.
Davis, last night. We're
I'm
more
glad she got-
upset
No,
that
we're
it
not.
was a black girl on the stage than the fact that what she actually received. Let's appreciate what's happening for black people.
You got a pretty low bar for
regardless
Trump.
of whatever.
That's a
I
low
love
bar.
the president.
You may.
A lot of you
But my
people,
point
but
is,
see, a lot of
you
y'all just
people-
have biases.
I don't have a bias
I'm talking about the
towards
people
it.
that hate the president. So nothing is going to be fair. Anything that he does for people, for us, for those of us that have a voice to say, hey, I think that this president deserves more credit than he get. We're not going to never get past the hate.
But here's the difference, though.
What has he done
Here's
to
the
make y'all
difference.
hate him?
Y'all, you keep talking about me hating the president.
I mean, but what-
Deep
what's
down,
your
I want the
disdain
president.
for?
Scott, go
because
ahead.
he drives a negative narrative. First of all,
No, that's the Democrats.
You keep telling. Well, I'm a Democrat. You keep telling me
And so why
that
do
we're
y'all
mad
saying
about
what
the
a
little.
party
Hold
doing
up.
on
You're
board
going to
out
ask
there?
Scott a question. Let him answer. Scott, go ahead.
I didn't ask them.
No, you actually
Well,
did
the-
ask him a question.
The little
Why
girl.
y'all hate
You
him?
said, why do you hate him?
Whatever he
And he's gonna
does
answer
that's
you.
constructive for people of color or black people, I'm all with it. You don't hear me criticize the president, but he's got a body of work and a negative, racist, misogynistic background and narrative
What's the-
that he
tell me about
drives.
the
Hold
racist
on.
background.
He drives for the last 3 years
What's the
and even
racist
before.
background?
That'll take too long for the show, but let me just say this, okay?
Facts.
Well, he equivocates people, the Nazis, with good people on both sides.
That's wrong.
Start with that.
That's wrong.
exactly
That's
what he
wrong.
said.
Now, when those people
All
were
right?
out there
He kept black
protesting,
people out of his
no.
departments before he was the president. He
had.
said it was
Hold
done.
on, no, they were sued back
Hey,
then
who?
because of Section 8. They did not want to accept Section
You're
8.
sued for
I got
discrimination?
people in
That's
my
not
family.
true.
You don't have to. We
That's
can
not
pull
true.
the facts.
You
Yes,
can.
it is. Listen,
They settled.
Nobody. Was he
You don't
racist when he
believe-
gave Jennifer Hudson a place to say when her family was murdered?
Let me tell you something. Oh,
Was he racist then?
So if I'm a white racist and I
But
give
you
you a place
going
to
back,
stay,
but you
that
was he racist when he got
removes
the
all
award for
sense of
being with
racism.
Rosa Parks? Was he
If I
racist
do
when he
anything
started
for
the Rainbow
black
Push
people,
Coalition?
if I give anything to
didn't
black
start
Was he
the
racist
Rainbow
when they
Push
was sending
Coalition.
money? Was he racist when they was sending money over to Africa? Was he racist when he stood with Michael
the Rainbow
Jackson?
Push
Was he
Coalition.
racist when he stood with
Robert,
Michael
here's what's
Jackson?
interesting.
Was he
Robert,
racist when he
here's
was
what's
running with Mike Tyson?
Robert, here's
Was
what's
he
interesting.
racist when he was running with
Just because he hangs with Mike Tyson, he's
Was
not a
he racist
racist.
when
Robert,
he was
here's
with
what's quite
Snoop Dogg,
interesting.
Diddy, and all of those people?
Excuse me, I'm
Nah,
talking
he
right.
racist.
Robert, here's what's interesting.
He's been racist.
Well, thank
Here's what's
God he got
interesting.
acquitted today.
So Angela wants us to celebrate one person,
No.
but ignore the hundreds of thousands of
No,
millions.
I want y'all to
I'm not
stop
done. I'm not
fake
done.
racist
I'm not
narrative.
done. First of all, I'm not
'Cause y'all
pushing
don't like
a
them.
racist
Yes, y'all
narrative.
are.
What I am laying out are identifiable facts that anybody can go check. And so here's my point. My point is this here. I can say, thank goodness he used the power of clemency to free Alice. What I can also say is thank goodness Obama used the power of clemency to free more than 2,000.
And then I can
I'm not
say
done.
thank
I'm not
God
done.
he passed the
I'm
first
not
Death
done.
Act to free
I'm not
over
done. I'm not done.
7,000.
What I'm also
Obama left people in
can
prison.
look at is that President Barack Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder put in place practices and procedures in the Department of Justice
Y'all won't tell
to
what all
deal with
Barack
the
Obama
issue
did.
of criminal justice reform.
Talk about what else he did.
But when you have a president and his Department of Justice who wants to get rid of consent decrees, who has said clear that we don't want to hurt the feelings of officers because, you know, y'all morale is low.
Officers save lives every day,
the
y'all.
reality is this here. The reality is this here. I can look at two things and say, yes, thank goodness he used the power to free Alice.
Exactly.
But if you over here are trying to
more
lock
than
up
Alice now.
1,000 more Alice's,
That's
what?
That's not true.
Robert,
That's
is it a
not true.
fact?
That's
Robert, you're an
not
attorney.
true.
Well, okay, hold
That's
up.
not true.
Angela, you an attorney?
That's not true.
Are you an attorney?
Nope.
Robert, are you an
Telling
attorney?
stories now.
Robert, is it a fact? Is it a fact that when Jeff Sessions became Attorney General, he rescinded the procedures of Eric Holder and said to U.S. attorneys, I want you to pursue the highest number of years to convict anyone going through the federal prison system?
Sound like
correct.
Joe Biden.
I'm not done. I'm not saying.
Hold on.
Joe
Robert,
Biden
is that,
said
go
the same
ahead.
thing and did the same thing. And
That
Bill
is
Clinton.
accurate.
And didn't
also
William Barr also
continue that?
Continue that. Go ahead.
And more importantly, on the Jeff Sessions front, because I think the stain of Jeff Sessions on this administration, on this nation, will take decades to
And who hired Jeff
unwind.
Sessions?
President Trump hired
and
Jeff
who's
Sessions.
continuing Jeff Sessions' policies?
Attorney General Barr.
Go right ahead.
But let's understand that Jeff Sessions also diverted Justice Department resources from combating violations of affirmative action, from violating hate crimes, in order to investigate anti-white discrimination in colleges. That's something that flew under the radar that Jeff Sessions did about 2 years ago, but that policy hasn't been rescinded. So
Didn't also under Jeff Sessions and under William Barr, how they were targeting black identity extremists, but then was stripping money to investigate white domestic terrorists?
Exactly.
Okay,
And
go ahead.
so I think we have to put ourselves in a position of doing is understand that as African Americans in this country, the title of the presidency is just that, a title. It does not belong to any one individual. It's not a title of nobility. You have it while you're there. It leaves when stays there when you leave. We have no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests. So when the president does the first step back, when he does the second step back, which is currently matriculated, when he works towards these initiatives, let's support him and big him up on that. But at the same time, be critical of these other things that he does and work on legislative means by which to ameliorate those.
So with that said, Angela, are you critical? Are you critical of when Jeff Sessions and now William Barr says we're going to pull back from consent decrees? Do you agree or disagree with that?
I disagree. I'm going to disagree with anything that harms black people.
Do you also hold them accountable and say pursuing as many years as possible for federal crimes is also wrong, that you should stick with the Eric Holder rule?
We know that that's wrong because that's exactly what Joe Biden did.
No, that's not
you
what
asked
I
me
asked
a question.
you. No, I asked you.
I answered. You like to talk over me when you don't want me to get the facts out.
Angela, I'm going to let you say that.
Difference.
I asked you, have you articulated that to Trump?
No, you just bringing this to my attention. No.
You didn't know this?
No, I did not.
This is a
I did
public
not.
matter.
But now that
Public
you,
knowledge.
excuse me, but now that you're saying that, that's the same thing that Joe Biden did and Bill Clinton pushed through and Bernie Sanders, and that is the reason for mass incarceration. What we're dealing with right now and what we are fighting.
Actually,
so I think, no, that's true.
They did not do
No,
that.
that 94
Actually-
crime bill, 3 strikes you out,
The
was
94
written by
crime bill didn't
Biden,
say-
signed by.
Allow me,
ask for the toughest
allow me.
Yes,
First
no,
of
no,
all,
no.
ask
I
for
got
that.
Joe Biden on tape. They got life.
If we want to
They got
deal,
life. What do you
excuse me,
mean?
Excuse me.
different.
If
But
we
they got
want,
life
excuse
for
me,
nonviolent crime.
excuse me. If we want to deal with the facts of mass incarceration, what we're dealing with is a series of procedures that went from 1970 all the way through the early 2000s.
3 strikes wiped us out.
No, let me go through that. And so what you had is those who have studied mass incarceration say you saw mass incarceration explode through a series of policies that were enacted from 1970 through the 2000s. So that means you saw it explode with the initial war on drugs, led by Richard Nixon. We have the notes from H.R. Haldeman, who specifically said the war on drugs was there to target black people.
Keep going.
Okay, that's where it started. Then what you then had is you had this whole continuum of this, let's just lock them up, throw away the key. Now you get into the 1980s, and now you have a crack epidemic, and then all of a sudden people are saying, hey, we do something about that. We also saw when Len Bias committed, when he died of an overdose, and Congress rushed to pass new drug laws and did not even think about the repercussions of those drug laws. But the trickle-down effect of that is that, no, hold up. That's a part of it. But what I'm trying to explain to you is you want to make it sound like that's the only thing. What I'm saying is it was a series of policy initiatives that took place over a 30-year period that led to more than 2 million people were incarcerated.
And Joe Biden was up under Obama for 8 years and did nothing. And now you guys advocate and push him to be the president.
Now, first of all, we also know for a fact.
He does not regret it.
We also know for a fact, Robert, that one of the things that was an outgrowth of the 1994 crime bill was when you say did nothing. One of the first bills that President Obama signed, Vice President Joe Biden, was actually decreasing crack to powder cocaine ratio from 100 to 18. Go ahead.
Well, one thing we have to remember this entire conversation on criminal justice reform and its genesis, from 1968 till 1992, Republicans were president every single year except for the Carter administration.
4 years,
4 years from 1976 to 1980. Other than that, from 1968 to 1972, Republicans completely ran the United States government. As an outcrop of that, and because President Clinton was elected by such a slim margin, that is what pushed over that 1993 Biden crime bill to the 1994 crime bill. What we can't do now that we have 30 years of understanding how disastrous that was is not allow those things to return. Right now, the Georgia governor is pushing a gang bill, as he calls it, which is actually a mass incarceration bill, which will increase the sentences for people who
the Republican governor in Georgia.
The Republican Governor Kemp is doing that right now.
And do you have Republicans who all of a sudden now want to tout the First Step Act? Are they saying to the governor, this is wrong?
So that's my point.
I live in Georgia. There's a lot of gangs down there.
But the point is, we know that the Clinton-Biden crime bill in '93 did not work, so we do not need to return to those things now. So instead of relitigating the past, let's learn from the past and ensure that we don't return to that now. So when it starts happening in Georgia, what we usually see is it spreads around the country. We saw that with stand your ground laws in Florida, and Georgia was then expanded nationally. So when you see this reduction of rights, this reduction of reforms that are wrapped into this tough on crime, we're going to fight gangs, we're going to fight human trafficking, we have to ensure that we are not returning to those failed policies and working going forward.
Why would you not want them to fight gangs and human trafficking?
Listen to what I'm saying. It didn't work. We did it for 30 years. It did not work. We, at one point in time,
what do you suggest?
Georgia had the largest prison population in the Western Hemisphere at one point in time. What I suggested, the same things that will cause people to not be in gangs in Sandy Springs and in Johns Creek, they're the same things that will cause people not to be in gangs on the Bluff or in English Avenue or in Bankhead. You need economic development, you need mentorship, you need infrastructure. You fix the conditions at home so that people do not have to enter the alternative economy, as Angela Davis called it. Then you reduce gangs. Locking people. Nobody who joins a gang says, oh man, if I join a gang, that could be extra 15 years in prison. A 13-year-old isn't thinking about it. They don't say what you do fits the conditions, and that's why we can't return to mass incarceration. So instead of fighting over what happened in 1993, let's fight about not having it happen in 2020.
Yeah, but you would agree that the bill that you're talking about in Georgia is inconsistent with the laws, the federal laws that are trending now.
Exactly, yeah.
That are talking about less incarceration, more rehabilitation and before you get to prison. We know.
So the question is the Republican infrastructure, Angela? You're Republican.
Exactly.
Yeah. Angela, let me finish the question.
Go ahead.
Is the Republican infrastructure saying to Republican Governor Brian Kemp, this is not the way to go? And if they aren't, why aren't they saying it?
So this is what I actually believe.
No,
Georgia
what are you
is
telling the GOP, though? That's what's his question.
Go ahead.
What are you
I'm going to
telling
let
the
you
GOP?
answer for me.
No, I'm not.
Because he was talking to me.
I was clarifying.
This is how I feel about the situation. Georgia is horrendous for gangs, okay? I agree with what you said. We need to put in some type of infrastructure other than just putting people in prison for life. But something has to be done. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Georgia is dangerous.
I've represented enough people in gang cases right there in Fulton County Courthouse to let you know that locking them up for an extra 10 years will not change not one thing. The only thing that will happen is you lock an 18-year-old up for 15 years, you're going to have a 35-year-old with a PhD in gangs who's going to be getting out of
And that's usually in your state prisons because there's no rehabilitation in the state prisons.
That's what I was saying.
But there is rehabilitation in private prisons.
Yeah, if we can interdict and we can put programs in the beginning to instead of simply say we're going to lock you up for a lot longer, that what we need to do is
in
rehabilitate.
Mississippi State Prison, they being murdered in Smith State Prison.
So this is my entire point.
Those are state prisons.
Listen, when you talk about a private prison, all private prisons are regulated by the state that they're operated in. They don't get to choose how many
Robert,
people come
go ahead.
to them.
Robert,
The parole board sends those people to them.
Robert is making his point. Go.
And roll with me on this. Let's understand that if we understand that these policies are the wrong policies, and we support President Trump on the First Step Act and efforts to reduce prison populations on the federal level, then why can't Republicans and Democrats both come together and say to our legislators now, not just in Georgia, but nationwide, we are not returning to mass incarceration policies. We need to be focusing on interdicting in the beginning and rehabilitating on the back end. I think that is the point that I'm trying to make about reconciliation, that instead of us yelling at each other, if we all agree on something, let's just do that and not allow the fringes to control our political system. I think that's the way forward.
Okay. Can I ask y'all a question? Now that we gotten past that, how do y'all feel about the president's stance on life?
I agree. I'm pro-life, so I'm with the president on life.
Define life. Hold up. Define life. Define stance on life.
His pro-life stance.
Does that also
protecting the unborn?
Does it also include?
No, we're talking about protecting the unborn.
No. See,
that's what pro-life is.
Hold up. Actually, that's not what pro-life is.
I've been a pro-life activist.
No.
Pro-life is about saving unborn babies.
See right there.
You're trying to take it somewhere else.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you
are.
What
I'm doing is
you can't answer the question.
No, I can answer the question.
How do you feel about his stance
Let me
on
also be real clear.
unborn
Let me also
babies?
be real clear as a Christian author, as the husband of an ordained minister, and also when you say life, y'all want to limit to abortion. What I'm saying is when you want to say
limit abortion.
No. You want to limit the conversation to abortion.
We haven't talked about it.
No. You said the unborn.
How do you feel about the president?
I'm going to expand a definition of life.
But that's not what this is about.
No. Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
You don't want to be about that.
You're trying to go somewhere
No, I'm not.
else.
See,
the president said late-term abortion.
If you're going to ask me a question.
Let's talk about late-term abortion.
If you're going to ask me a question.
How do you feel about late-term abortion?
First of all, 1.3%. First of all, let's define late-term abortions. Late-term abortions represents abortions after 21 weeks. Only 1.3% of all late-term abortions after 21 weeks. And the facts also show that most of those are to save the life of the mother. Now,
with these new laws that were just passed. How do you feel about the fact that more black babies are being aborted than born?
You asked me a question. I'm going to answer the question. This is the issue right here.
You're not being factual,
This is the issue when folks talk about life.
You're not being factual.
You want to talk about the unborn.
Because that's what pro-life is about. That's what pro-life is about.
What you don't want to deal with are the kids who died in cages.
We can deal with that. We can deal with that. Because kids die, American children are in cages. What about juvenile detention? What you don't want to deal with are the sexual assaults of those kids by the folks who would Border Patrol. No. That wasn't by Border Patrol. That's by their peers. You got kids being molested in juvenile detention. Y'all don't care about our kids. You can't care about the kids at the border and not care about our kids.
You can be as loud as you want to be.
But you can't
I'm
care
not
about
done.
the kids at the border and not care about our kids in juvenile detention, because there's no difference.
See, Angela, unlike
you don't want to answer the question.
I talk about all of it.
You don't want to talk about killing unborn babies. You want to talk about babies at the border. But that's where y'all wrong at. Because our children been in cages forever.
The issue I have is this here. When I hear Republicans, these white conservative evangelicals talk about
because it's okay to kill a baby in the womb.
I'm going to use a story took place. A pastor in Omaha, Nebraska.
He don't want to answer the question.
No, Angela, I'm answering your question.
No, you're not.
But see, you can't listen.
You want to go around.
No, Angela, no. I'm going to tell you what somebody said. A white pastor. White pastors came to a black pastor in Omaha, Nebraska, and they said, Pastor, we want you to participate with us in this pro-life march. And he said, oh, not a problem. He said, but also I need something from y'all. He said, I need your assistance to deal with the crack houses that are happening, because that's also lives in there. White conservative, evangelical, pro-life pastors.
What that got to do with what me and you talking about right now?
I'm talking.
But me and you having
listen,
a conversation.
this is what they said. They said, oh, Pastor, that's your problem. So what they were saying is, on the issue of pro-life, dealing with the unborn, they were saying that's our problem. This black pastor, Robert, who said I'm pro-life, he said not just when it comes to the unborn, but those who are born, these white evangelicals said, no, that's your problem. And so that's part of the issue. When I look at the Catholic Church is pro-life, but also anti-death penalty. But you've got these white conservative evangelicals, and I'm not done. And some black conservative evangelicals who are ardent supporters of the death penalty, but then they say, I'm pro-life.
I'm one of them.
I'm going to get to you in a second, Robert.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what my point is, that life cannot end at birth. That's what we have to understand. So when I say I'm pro-life, that means I'm pro-life. I'm anti-death penalty. I'm anti-violations of the 8th Amendment. I'm anti-cruel and unusual punishment, long sentences. I'm anti a lack of health care. I'm anti a lack of housing. I'm anti a lack of education, anti not having a clean environment. Because if we're saying we are pro-life, that means we have to support the lives of every human being. If we say that every single life is sacred, I believe every single life is sacred.
And it's also when you say you're pro-life and you care about the unborn, but then you provide no neonatal care for those black women. Then you don't deal with infant mortality rates. Then you don't deal with those black women who are actually dying in childbirth. That's the thing that
y'all love to say that. Black women been giving birth forever. So stop using that as an excuse for us to murder our children.
First of all, I'm not using
it ain't nothing in my skin that's gonna make me die from childbirth. There's nothing in my skin that is gonna make me die from childbirth. Black women, every black person in this world has got here. No. You are wrong.
Angela, you're loud and wrong.
No, you're wrong. You won't let me talk. You won't let me talk. You won't let me talk.
Excuse me.
Who the heck? Listen,
Serena Williams
ain't got no factual.
A rich black woman.
That's one person.
Excuse me.
You cannot sit up here and make it seem like black women are dying from giving birth when we have been giving birth forever. That is a lie from hell to get us to continue aborting our children. As a black man, for one, you wrong for even going on that lie, because black people are here because black women gave birth. Now, here's my position. Because abortion has wiped out 46% of our population. Now, that's just facts. It's 32 million black people in America. 20 million have been aborted. More black babies are being aborted than they are being born. You cannot be pro-black and pro-abortion. That just does not work. Hold on, let me finish. You won't let me finish. You won't let me finish.
For all the people that are home. No. See, if you won't let me finish. You said you was going to let me finish. Be loud and wrong.
You said you was going to let me finish.
Factual.
You said you were going to let me finish.
Go to my iPad.
You said, no, where you reading from?
Headline says,
where you reading from?
Why are black women?
Where is that?
Excuse me.
Where is that?
Angela.
How is that factual?
Angela, I am talking.
That's from the American
Angela,
Planned Parenthood say the same thing.
Angela, I am talking.
They also say poor women of color will die without access to abortion.
Here's what it says. Why are black women at such high risk of dying from pregnancy complications? This, y'all, excuse me,
it's
this is a
something in my
story
skin.
published
Propaganda.
American Heart Association.
Because they don't want black babies in America.
Here's the quote. Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's partly why the overall rate of pregnancy-related deaths has climbed over the past 2 decades, making the maternity mortality rate in the United States the worst in any industrialized country.
Why are black women dying
I'm not done talking. according to a 2016 analysis published in the journal The Lancet. Quote, it's basically a public health and human rights emergency because it's been estimated that a significant portion of these deaths could be prevented, said Dr. Anna Langer, director of the Women in Health Initiative at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health in Boston.
So we're not
Robert,
dying.
this is what I'm asking you, and this is the issue. When I listen to people talk about pro-life, and they talk about the unborn.
Y'all gonna stop
what
trying
I
to make it seem like black women dying from having
What I also
kids.
ask is, for instance, when Louisiana passed their law, I had the black legislator on here. What she said is they passed their law dealing with unborn, but they also said they also passed dealing with this whole issue of infant mortality. The issue that I have is when people are loud are saying they pro-life and they only want to limit it to the unborn. They don't want to deal with these issues. So if you life, you should be dealing with this issue as well.
Let me finish,
Robert,
you
then
never let me
Angela.
finish.
We have to deal with the fundamental concepts of what we are as a nation. That what are our actual values? What do we actually believe in? That we have to understand your social economic level, the amount of money you have should not determine whether or not you get to live through childbirth.
Agreed.
That your zip code should not determine the type of hospital you can go to, the type of postnatal care your children can have, the type of education and lifestyle and future they can have. So I think that while we are setting in a political agenda, it doesn't have to be a Republican or Democratic agenda. The agenda should be, do we want our children to grow up and be healthy? Because these are folks who have to carry us on for the next generation. And regardless of how we get to that fundamental goal, let's get to that goal. And I think that's the issue that gets lost in some of the broader conversations, that we can't simply make it a one-trick pony issue. It is a comprehensive birth till adulthood conversation that we need to be having. And where we invest our money at in our society is where our values are. So we should move there, and I think we'll bring more people along with us.
Angela?
So what I want to say is, in regards to what you were saying about the position on pro-life, to me, honestly, if there's a crazy man out there that kidnaps my daughter and cuts my daughter up in 1,000 pieces, do I believe that person deserves death? Absolutely. I'll probably kill him myself. I cannot compare someone that's sitting on death penalty, someone that's been given the right to life and had a chance to live, to that of a unborn child who has not been given the right to life. Excuse me.
Who's your
everyone,
uncle?
let me finish.
No, who's your uncle?
Excuse me. Everyone that advocates for abortion has been born.
No, who's your uncle?
Nobody advocating for abortion has been aborted.
No, who's your uncle?
So it is unfair, my god uncle.
Who's your god uncle?
King Jr., and he did not stand for abortion.
Who's your godmother?
LV the King.
Okay, let me also ask you this question, since you're going.
Yeah, because you won't never let me finish.
Are
you always cut me off.
Are you a Christian?
I believe in God.
Are you a Christian?
I believe in God. I'm not gonna call myself a Christian.
Do you believe that a person has the ability to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior?
Yeah.
So if you put somebody to death, and that means that you don't have the opportunity as a...
If somebody kills my daughter, I'm going to kill him.
I'm asking the question.
I want everybody to know that.
I'm asking the question.
If somebody harms one of my children, right, or takes something from me, and they're innocent, they deserve death.
You're not really a child of God.
And the Bible says eye for eye and a tooth for a tooth. What do you mean?
But you're not really a child of God, because what you're not doing is you are not extending. So what you're saying is that somebody, if you put somebody to death and you never give them an opportunity to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord.
So then why are we aborting children?
Excuse me.
Why are we aborting unborn babies?
Allow me to finish my question. If you say that you're all about life, and Robert explained it. See, that's pro-life.
No, you trying to make me Jesus.
What you're doing? No, I'm not.
You trying to make me Jesus?
Actually, no, I'm not.
No. Pro-life. Ain't nothing in the pro-life movement is fighting for anybody on death penalty. The whole pro-life movement is about unborn children.
And right there.
But let's talk about facts.
And so what you've done,
you trying to add something else into the pro-life movement that's not there.
What you have now done is exactly the fundamental problem.
So if you feel like all life counts, why are you standing with a party that advocates for us to kill our children?
I'm not done. What you are doing is you want to simply place life in an extremely small box.
You got to be born. Jesus was born. Jesus wasn't aborted. Jesus was born.
Angela, I'm talking here.
You got to be born.
I'm talking here. What you also don't want to deal with, and the people who are watching need to understand this as well. What you don't want to deal with, Angela, is that if you care about life, that means that you're not paying people not to grow food. If people truly care about life, then they will be saying, we got to make sure that nobody in this country
So you
is going
telling
hungry.
me?
I'm not,
so you
I'm not
telling
done.
me I was a
done.
single mother
I'm
on
not
welfare.
done.
I got all the
I'm
benefits
not
I
done.
needed to raise my
I'm not
children.
done.
Now tell the truth
Actually,
now.
if you want to get the most money,
Tell the truth
if you
now.
want to get the most money,
Tell
what
the
you should
truth
do
now.
is be an
Ain't no
Iowa
children
farmer.
out here
What I
Ain't no
will say
children
is
out here
this-
starving in America
That
now.
is a lie.
Where they at?
Oh my God.
Where they at?
Did you actually
Where they
just
at?
say there are no
Where they
children
at?
starving
Where
in
they at?
America?
Where they at? We have food stamps.
Are you-
We have food stamps. People
Angela,
can get food
do you
stamps. We
bother
have
to
Section
read?
8. We have, okay, so if we got children starving in America, why are we fighting to open our borders to illegal immigrants?
Do you read?
Why are we fighting to open the borders to illegal immigrants? If you can't take care of your own, why are you
actually
opening the
just
borders
said
for others?
they're not starving children in America?
Listen, we are not a
Angela,
third world country.
I want to be clear. Did
I
you
haven't
just say
seen
that?
any. My whole life, I never seen a starving child
Where
in
do you
America.
live?
I'm in Atlanta. Where are the starving children
Angela,
at? 'Cause I've never seen them in my life.
Let me help. You know what? Well,
Where they at?
You obviously
I'm from the
got
hood.
your. Well, you from the
Where they
hood.
at?
You obviously
Where
are blind.
and everybody get food stamps in the hood.
What
They
are you
sell them
talking-
too. Ain't
what
nobody
are you
starving in the
talking
hood
about?
now. Ain't nobody in the hood starving unless it's the homeless people on the side
I
of
have
the street.
never. Here's the deal.
Let's be honest. Let's be real.
I know a lot of conservatives.
Where the starving
I
children
know
at?
a lot of
So
black
I can go
conservatives,
feed them.
But I have never in my life, in my year since 1991,
But can you just tell me where the starving children
as a
at so I can go
professional
feed them?
journalist,
'Cause I don't want nobody
I have
starving.
never heard a Republican or conservative say there are no starving
Where are they?
children or people in America.
Where they at?
Robert, go ahead.
Where they at? You know
Robert,
where some
I
at?
know you got to go, but Robert,
Do
go
you
ahead.
know where some at? Because I want to go feed them. Where they at?
English Avenue. English Avenue, right down the street from the new stadium. You can go to Hollywood Road. There's one of my friends,
There's
Russell.
starving children out there.
One of my friends, Russell, has an organization called Occupy the Hood. What we do is weekend feedings for people.
So they're not starving. Y'all feeding them.
Well, the reason we're feeding them because they don't have their own resources to be able
They're
to eat.
feeding them
So
because they're
there are
starving.
organizations all over America that feed people that don't have food. So let's stop acting like people out here just starving. Because people in Atlanta go down to the corners and feed those people all the time.
But the point is, we shouldn't be in a situation where people have to depend on the charity of strangers. We should live in a social system where people aren't living under bridges, where they're not sleeping in tents downtown, where they have the ability to, instead of drug addiction being treated as a criminal enterprise, it's treated as a medical thing. So let's talk about building. You know the beautiful society.
If y'all know
that
we got those
about?
issues, why are we opening our borders to millions of illegal immigrants to come in and we can't take care of our own?
That's not the point.
No, that is the point.
About Atlanta right now.
Listen, I've been doing nonprofit work in Atlanta for 15 years.
Right now.
Well, I don't know what part of Atlanta you obviously doing work in, but you clearly are missing the serious part. Do you even hold up?
Ain't nobody
For
starving
somebody
on
who's
the
even
streets in
related out
Atlanta.
the
They are
do you even
being
know who
fed.
Hosea Williams is?
Of course, I feed the homeless.
And what do they do?
Feed people so they don't starve.
And they're starving.
They're
why
not.
they feed them?
No.
Oh my
that's
God.
not. So why they feed? They feeding them. How they starving? Are you serious?
Do you know how many children go to Atlanta public schools hungry?
And do they get fed at school?
Do you know?
Do they get fed at school? Don't we got all types of food boxes and food pantries all over Atlanta where they can go and get food?
Actually, Angela, you had people who were trying to do the cuts in those programs.
Listen.
I sat right here, the SNAP program. The people you support, Donald Trump, they tried to make significant cuts to the SNAP program because they said
able-bodied individuals.
No. See, this is where if you stop
talk
talking,
about what happened.
Angela,
But you talking about what they wanted to do. Let's talk about what was done.
Angela, they got stopped because it was sane Democrats and sane Republicans.
Well, why Democrats
who said,
ain't sane enough to stop them from killing full-term babies?
Governor Perdue, who now is over the Department of Agriculture, who said, we are not going to shrink the amount of food and just put them in blue boxes on the table to people. We are not going to do that.
Okay.
We are a much better country than that.
Okay.
But the reality
It was
is,
Democrats and
the same people, Robert, who are sitting here talking about, oh yeah, we can reduce the food. Giving $30 billion in subsidies, $30 billion to farmers because of Trump's tariffs, more money than the bailout cost.
Let's understand, it's not just the farmers. We've had, I think, two of the nation's biggest dairy farms filed for bankruptcy in the last month.
10% of Wisconsin dairy farmers actually are out of business.
Yeah, not to mention.
No, we got you. All right, Angela, thanks a lot. Thanks for being here. Robert, go ahead and make your point.
Well, I think that the final point that just has to get made is understanding that when we're talking about government, we're talking about the allocation of resources. And if we're going to be devoting that much money to get people to not produce milk, to not produce products, we need to have that same amount of compassion and infrastructure to ensure that children and people who are below the poverty line have access to the foods and goods that they need. This
is the fundamental issue. And folks, just so y'all know, Ben Watson is doing a documentary on the issue of abortion. And he sat on my set and he interviewed me for it. And I said to him then that the people who call themselves pro-life, they purposely want to limit the conversation to this very narrow box. The point I'm making is this here. If you say you're pro-life, be pro-life, not just the issue of those who are unborn. And that's, if y'all want to call them out, that's how you challenge them. Ask them, do they care about the people who are on opioids? Ask them, do they care about those who are strung out on drugs? Ask them, do they care about the lives of people who are alcoholics? Ask them, do they care about the women who can't get neonatal care and the issue with those pregnancies? Ask them those questions. See, what they want to say is, oh, black people are killing babies. But they ain't talking about the fact that white folks are actually having fewer babies than anybody else. They don't want to talk about the white abortions taking place at private health care centers and not at Planned Parenthood and public centers. See, the people who are so-called pro-life don't really want to have these life conversations because, see, as you heard Angela, they want to narrow the discussion on life. And she said, no, you can't expand it because she admitted it. The pro-life, she said it, y'all, right here. The pro-life movement is only about the unborn. And that's why in their public policy, they will allow what's happening to those children in the cages on the border. That's why they say nothing when black men are being shot and killed by cops. That's why the pro-lifers say nothing when African Americans and Latinos are being beaten by cops with police brutality. That's why they say nothing when it comes to kids who are starving, going to school, and they're talking about how do we cut the food programs, the breakfast and the lunch programs. That's why they say nothing when it comes to all of those issues. If you are truly a person who is pro-life, it's going to be reflected in all of the policies you support, not just the issue of abortion. Got to go to a break. When we come back, we'll talk about, of course, impeachment. The Senate has voted to acquit Donald Trump. That's next. Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
Non-voting is a fruitless temper tantrum. Judge Bruce Wright.
All right, folks, join Dr. Jackie Hood Martin as she engages others to think like a leader. Are you looking to enhance your leadership or that of your team in 2020? You can join her newest online course and mastermind group called How Successful People Think. She'll be your guide as you learn timeless leadership principles to apply to daily living. The offer expires February 28th. She's a certified John Maxwell instructor. To register for or start the online course today, go to www.livetolead.com/Leesburg. That's livetolead.com/Leesburg. All right, the impeachment of Donald Trump, the trial is over. The Senate today voted 53-47 not to convict Donald Trump. One Republican stood with the Democrats, and that is Utah Senator Mitt Romney. Here's what Senator Kamala Harris had to say on the Senate floor.
When the framers wrote the Constitution, they didn't think someone like me would serve as a United States Senator. But they did envision someone like Donald Trump being President of the United States, someone who thinks he is above the law and that rules don't apply to him. So they made sure our democracy had the tool of impeachment to stop that kind of abuse of power. The House managers have clearly laid out a compelling case and evidence of Donald Trump's misconduct. They have shown that the President of the United States of America withheld military aid and a coveted White House meeting for his political gain. He wanted a foreign country to announce, not actually conduct, announce an investigation into his political rivals. And then he refused to comply with congressional investigations into his misconduct. And unfortunately, a majority of United States senators, even those who concede that what Donald Trump did was wrong, are nonetheless going to refuse to hold him accountable. The Senate trial of Donald Trump has been a miscarriage of justice. Donald Trump is going to get away with abusing his position of power for personal gain, abusing his position of power to stop Congress from looking into his misconduct, and falsely claiming he's been exonerated. He's going to escape accountability because a majority of senators have decided to let him.
Ooh, Lord, y'all, but the Republicans are mad as hell at Senator Mitt Romney. You had Donald Trump Jr. tweeting, expel him from the Republican Party. Here's some of what Mitt Romney had to say today.
The Constitution is at the foundation of our republic's success, and we each strive not to lose sight of our promise to defend it. The Constitution established the vehicle of impeachment that has occupied both houses of our Congress these many days. We have labored to faithfully execute our responsibilities to it. We have arrived at different judgments, but I hope we respect each other's good faith. The allegations made in the articles of impeachment are very serious. As a senator juror, I swore an oath before God to exercise impartial justice. I am profoundly religious. My faith is at the heart of who I am. I take an oath before God as enormously consequential. I knew from the outset that being tasked with judging the president, the leader of my own party, would be the most difficult decision I have ever faced. I was not wrong. The House managers presented evidence supporting their case, and the White House counsel disputed that case. In addition, the president's team presented three defenses. First, that there could be no impeachment without a statutory crime. Second, that the Biden's conduct justified the president's actions. And third, that the judgment of the president's actions should be left to the voters. Let me first address those three defenses. The historic meaning of the words high crimes and misdemeanors, the writings of the founders, and my own reasoned judgment convinced me that a president can indeed commit acts against the public trust that are so egregious that while they are not statutory crimes, they would demand removal from office. To maintain that the lack of a codified and comprehensive list of all the outrageous acts that a president might conceivably commit renders Congress powerless to remove such a president defies reason. The President's counsel also notes that Vice President Biden appeared to have a conflict of interest when he undertook an effort to remove the Ukrainian prosecutor general. If he knew of the exorbitant compensation his son was receiving from a company actually under investigation, the Vice President should have recused himself. While ignoring a conflict of interest is not a crime, it is surely very wrong. With regards to Hunter Biden, taking excessive advantage of his father's name is unsavory, but also not a crime. Given that in neither the case of the father nor the son was any evidence presented by the President's counsel that a crime had been committed, the President's insistence that they be investigated by the Ukrainians is hard to explain other than as a political pursuit. There's no question in my mind that were their names not Biden, the president would never have done what he did. The defense argues that the Senate should leave the
That was about an 8-minute speech that Mitt Romney actually gave there. Robert, here's the deal. You saw Mitt Romney there. Look, and I've criticized Mitt Romney on other issues, but you saw him choke up because he knew what he was doing. He knew that he is about to be ostracized. He knows that he is going to be attacked. He did a series of interviews with Fox News and other conservative media before the vote because he knew what was coming down. But this is what the framers actually expected. That if you were in the most deliberative body, they called it, the United States Senate, that you were going to put country over party. Because first of all, when they created the Constitution, there were no parties. Mm-hmm. That's what they expected. What they did not expect was blind allegiance.
Well, you know, if you want to dive into there, one of the things that Washington included in his farewell address was a prohibition against factionalism. That he felt that even in his cabinet at the time, that you would have people who would become so factional that he felt at one point in time it would destroy the nation. This is why if you look at Federalist number 65, I think it's paragraph 3, Alexander Hamilton articulates the fact that the reason they placed the impeachment trial in the Senate is to be free from the passions of the House of Representatives. At the time, the Senate was appointed by the state legislature and not directly elected by the people, and they felt that would be the most deliberative body. You don't want it to be in the Supreme Court in front of unelected judges who might have an allegiance to the party that or to the president that appointed them. You don't want it in the House to be compelled by the passions of the people. You want it in the Senate where it's deliberative. I think beyond just Romney, the most damning portion of this entire trial was the testimony or the argument by Dershowitz and also the statements by the swing senators who still voted for acquittal. Yeah, Ben Sass, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Marco Rubio,
Cory Gardner.
Yeah, Cory Gardner, Lamar Alexander, Mitt Romney. So you had nearly 10 Republican senators who said, yes, the president is guilty of everything he has been accused of. Susan Collins expressly said, yes, the president is guilty, but I feel like Congress has failed us. Lamar Alexander said, the reason I voted against having witnesses is the president is so guilty, I don't need more witnesses to know that he's more guilty. The analogy he used was saying that if 8 people say there was a car crash, why do I need a 9th person to say there was a car crash? So you have that many people in your own party saying that you are 100% guilty. And even your lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, who made 2 stunning arguments. One being that, yes, the president did everything he was accused of, but that's not impeachable. Secondarily, that the president can do whatever he wants as long as it's in favor of his own reelection. That also makes it not impeachable. Under his rubric, nothing Nixon did would be wrong. The break-in in the Watergate Hotel was simply to help him get reelected, which is in the public interest, and therefore it should be constitutional. So the fact that the president and Republicans are taking a victory lap on this, I think is not borne out by the facts. The victory that they have is the fact that they had a majority in the United States Senate. It's not that he was acquitted, as they're saying, because you can't be acquitted without a trial. You can't have a trial without witnesses and evidence. What we are really seeing right now is that so many people put party above facts, above evidence, that you'll get a statement like you got from Murkowski saying that the president did everything he did, or even the statement from Rubio, the president did everything that he is accused of doing. All of those things are impeachable constitutionally, and I'm still voting for acquittal. So it's a very dangerous place that we put ourselves at, because without those checks and balances, what is there to stop the president from doing anything articulated in Article 1 and not simply governing by fiat?
And then to say, well, you know, that's really not our job. No, actually, it is. That's why it's in the Constitution for you to do that. So it was just, to me, it was shameful. And now all of a sudden, you've had Congressman Collins, Doug Collins, Georgia, and Senator Collins of Maine both say, well, you know, we think the president has learned, and he's rebuked them.
During the State of the Union, he has already rebuked.
He was like, I ain't apologizing for nothing. Mm-hmm.
Because remember, in 1999 at the State of the Union address, Bill Clinton, while he was still on Senate trial, he apologized to the nation for the actions he had taken. And let's understand, if the president had not taken this hardline position from the beginning, impeachment probably never would have happened. If after the call had came out with Zelensky, if he had simply done an Oval Office address where he said, I was given bad advice by Rudy Giuliani, by our national security apparatus. I'm not a professional politician. It was not my intention to break any federal law. We're making the proper changes needed to ensure that we are fighting corruption in Ukraine and defending the needs of the American people. Done. Nothing else happened. So this dig your feet in, never admit defeat, never back down strategy is what brought us to this place right now. And I also think Democrats have a lot to learn from this, which is don't rush through the process. Don't skip steps. That if you want something to be taken seriously, then you fight it out in the courts.
What you don't do is you don't, because the whole deal was let's get it done before the caucuses start, the primary season start, so the candidates don't have to deal with this sort of stuff and they can run. But this is also a deal of constitutional issues. Speaking of the caucuses, folks, we still don't know who the hell won the Iowa caucus. Here we go to my iPad. You see right here that Pete Buttigieg has a slim lead, 26.7% over Bernie Sanders, 25.4%, even though Sanders actually has more votes than Pete Buttigieg. The fact that today is Wednesday and this was Monday night, this shows you how absolutely idiotic the Iowa caucuses are. And then they released some results, and then they sent a statement out saying, hold up, we got to correct that. I mean, but I thought you were waiting all this time for quality control. So we're going to not know really who won until probably tomorrow, maybe Friday. Yeah, that's a debate Friday and New Hampshire votes next week. To me, Iowa's utterly irrelevant now.
Iowa was irrelevant beforehand, and it's completely irrelevant now. It has no bearing on what will happen in this race, because let's understand, the winner in Iowa will probably have a grand total of 40 to 45,000 votes. That is less than you need to win a city council seat in most places. You can't become a state rep with that number of votes. So the idea that this gives any indication of what the preference of American voters are going forward as far as selecting a Democratic nominee is nonsensical. What Iowa does is it shows who is willing to pay the most money to political activists in Iowa. Because remember, Buttigieg's lead isn't based off of being the first choice. Iowa goes through rounds. So after the first round of caucusing, if you don't make the threshold, the 15% threshold, then your second choice, you get pulled over to them. So what Buttigieg really racked up on was being the second choice of Klobuchar voters, being the second choice of Yang voters, being the second choice of Biden voters. So we're not really getting real information out of this. The only thing that really says is who's willing to spend the most money to prop up Iowa's economy every couple years in order to make sure that people get into a room. That's all that Iowa means.
I'll tell you this, though. Joe Biden, granted, he's lucky. All the drama is over. Nancy Pelosi tearing up the speech, and Trump not shaking her hand, and all this drama. He finished fourth. Bad. They fired his Iowa field director because apparently precinct captain, some didn't even show up. Others didn't know how to run a caucus. What the hell, dude? You run for president 2 previous times. How in the hell you don't know how to run a presidential campaign?
The thing that I think we're seeing out of this is the concern for the Biden campaign has been momentum the entire time, because he hasn't been the most exciting candidate. He hasn't been a candidate of big ideas. There's no passion behind Biden. It is Leslie Jones on Saturday Night Live articulated best when she said, "Oh, that's Obama's granddaddy." That is what.
No, but I think part of the issue is also that frankly, they thought they wouldn't coast. I think the Biden people are operating like Hillary Clinton did in 2016 and 2008. Yo, I got this. It's like, no. What this is showing is you have to run. And you have to run hard. And you're not going to be handed anything. And
I think the bigger concern is going to be Bloomberg right now. Because right now, Bloomberg is running third in Florida. He's third nationally. Tom Steyer's in second place in South Carolina, got the endorsement of the Black Women's Legislative Caucus.
Well, here's the deal. First of all, here right now, Steyer performing horribly in Iowa. The bottom line is here. What's going to happen in New Hampshire? What's going to happen in Nevada? Well, let me say this right now. If Joe Biden comes in third and fourth in New Hampshire and Nevada, I'm telling you right now, black people are going to abandon Joe Biden in South Carolina. If Joe Biden does not let me be real clear. If Joe Biden does not finish in first place in South Carolina, he's done.
And that's why the Steyer point is so important, because what we've seen is when somebody campaigns hard for the black vote, it is possible to get it. And what Steyer has done is dump millions and millions into street money, into political activists on the ground, not to the D.C. lobbyists who come down to run the campaign, but to grassroots organizations who are actually out there getting the vote. And what we're seeing with Bloomberg has unlimited money to run. It's the first in American political history and in recent American political history where somebody can simply say, I don't need the first 3 or 4 primary races. I have enough money to run nationally. Understand that if Donald Trump had ran his Super Bowl ad, without Bloomberg's money, there would have been no Democratic response because no other candidate has the economic resources in order to do so. And right now, Biden's money is drying up, and he needs to be concerned about that.
But the only thing Bloomberg also has to worry about, you can spend all that money, but eventually you're going to have to talk to the people.
That's your real question.
And eventually, you're going to have to talk to the people. And then, so the question is, will he do it? I had gotten a text. I don't know if this is a real text or not from somebody with the Bloomberg campaign. But I got a text about that. So we'll see. I'll respond to it. We'll see what they have to say. All right, y'all. Bayard Rustin, a gay civil rights leader arrested for having sex with men, has been granted a posthumous pardon by California Governor Gavin Newsom 67 years later. He was jailed on a morals charge. He was eventually convicted of misdemeanor vagrancy and was sentenced to 60 days in jail. The offense landed him on the sex offender list, cost him jobs, and was used to basically deny him his proper place in the civil rights movement. People like segregationist Senator Strom Thurmond, who read Rustin's arrest record on the Senate floor, trashed him. Now, following the success of the Montgomery bus boycott in 1956, Rustin was the one who really introduced nonviolence to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He also was one of the 2 organizers, along with A. Philip Randolph, of the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and was the main person to push the movement and King, toward, as I said, towards nonviolent ideas and tactics. And so certainly that is a good thing by the governor. Michigan State University has issued an apology after students found dolls of notable black Americans hanging from strings on trees in a gift shop. The display featured Barack and Michelle Obama, Prince, Martin Luther King Jr., and Harriet Tubman. Michigan State officials took down the display after receiving complaints. University spokeswoman Emily Gherkin-Garant issued a statement of apologizing to students and noting that employees and volunteers at the Wharton Center will undergo racial bias training. All right, folks, let's talk about what's happening in Houston and Texas Southern University, where the Board of Regents last night voted to fire President Dr. Austin Lane. Frankly, folks, they read this long statement, and the evidence is frankly very thin, what they read, and it came to some issue, some drama when it came to admission. So here's some of the board secretary, Mark Carter, reading what took place with President Lane.
As personal chair, I move that the board chair be authorized to deliver to Dr. Austin A. Lane a notice of termination for cause under his contract with such supplements as appropriate, and such notice shall include an opportunity for a due process hearing and for Dr. Lane to request a mediation. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? All in
Yes.
favor?
No. Discussion. We need
I think he has to make a statement.
Go ahead.
This time I'm going to read the notice of termination for cause. Dear Dr. Lane, the Board of Regents of Texas Southern University, the board, via action taken at a posted board meeting on February 4th, 2020, has authorized the delivery this notice of proposed termination for cause in accordance with Section 7B of the employment contract between yourself and Texas Southern University dated October 25, 2018, contract.
All right, folks, that's about a 14-minute video. We want to thank the student at TSU for sending us the video. We're going to have that on our social media platforms. So here's the deal. They allege that he had some inconsistent statements when it came to an admissions issue in their law school. Now, my understanding, according to my sources with the university, is that when the dean of the law school found out that some improprieties, that he recommended that this employee be fired. He told the president agreed the employee was fired. So now the regions are trying to suggest that Lane didn't say the same thing in two different interviews that they gave. Now Lane is going to, tomorrow, is going to hold a news conference where he is going to speak to this issue. They have been averting this for quite some time, and explaining this whole deal. It's so much drama there, Robert, with the president, extremely popular, has raised lots of money there. The actions of these regions has frankly been intolerable and shameful. And again, what they laid out is weak as hell.
Well, I think it's important for us to get both sides of the story and get all the information out into the public eye, because we have seen what happens when you have a president of HBCU who is not acting in the best interest of the students. We saw what happened. I was at Clark Atlanta when Morris Brown College closed down, for example, and the president took off and just disappeared. So let's ensure that we have a full public airing of these things. And this is one of the times where it's so important to have black media outlets with a voice such as yours to bring light to these issues and ensure that everything is above board and happening in the full light of the public.
Well, these board of regents have been trying to hide from the media. They didn't want to explain why they put them on administrative leave. They laid out all of this sort of stuff. Folks, if y'all roll the video and fast forward it, it was packed. It took place in their library. There were a lot of supporters of Austin Lane who were there, who were very angry with this board of regents, demanding more answers. And so we certainly hope to get those. And we've been reaching out to the board of regents to come on this show. They've been quite unresponsive, which is no surprise. And I tell you right now, when somebody's unresponsive to explain what the actions they're taking, that's a red flag for me. All right, folks, got to go to a break. When we come back, now I already had to educate Wendy Williams one time. Now I got to take Wendy Williams to school a second time for her comments about Jay-Z, Beyonce, Blue Ivy, and the National Anthem. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
My message is about changing our way of thinking about women in abuses of power. Law professor Anita Hill.
All right, so a lot of y'all are always asking me about some of the pocket squares that I wear. Now, Robert don't have one on. Nope. Now, I don't particularly like the white pocket squares. I don't like even the silk ones. And so I was reading GQ magazine a number of years ago, and I saw this guy who had this pocket square here, and it looks like a flower. This is called a shibori pocket square. This is how the Japanese manipulate the fabric to create this sort of flower effect. So I'm going to take it out and then place it in my hand so you see what it looks like. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And so I tracked down, it took me a year to find a company that did it. And so they basically about 47 different colors. And so I love them because, again, as men, we don't have many accessories to wear, so we don't have many options. And so this is really a pretty cool pocket square. Now, what I love about this here is you saw when it's in the pocket, you know, it gives you that flower effect like that. But if I wanted to also, unlike other, because if I flip it and turn it over, it actually gives me a different type of texture. And so therefore it gives me a different look. So there you go. So if you actually want to get one of these shibori pocket squares, we have them in 47 different colors. All you got to do is go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All right, so first of all, that graphic is way too small. So tomorrow we're going to run it right down here all across the screen. So it's RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All you got to do is go to my website and you can actually get this. Now, for those of you who are members of our Bring the Funk fan club, there's a discount for you to get our pocket squares. That's why you also got to be a part of our Bring the Funk fan club. And so that's what we want you to do. And so it's pretty cool. So if you want to jazz your look up, you can do that. In addition, y'all see me with some of the feather pocket squares. My sister, who's a designer, she actually makes these. They're all custom made. So when you also go to the website, website, you can also order one of the customized feather pocket squares right there at rolandsmartin.com/pocket squares. So please do so. And of course, that goes to support the show. And again, if you're a Bring the Funk fan club member, you get a discount. This is why you should join the fan club. All right, y'all. Sunday, the Super Bowl, TMZ captured a picture of Jay-Z and Beyonce seated during the National Anthem. Some people took offense to that and were upset. Well, during Wendy Williams' Hot Topics discussion on her show, Wendy decided to call them out. Jay-Z responded saying that they were sitting because they were really focused on the performance of Demi Lovato, of course, his Rock Nation. They're over all of the music performances at the Super Bowl. He also said they were there discussing her performance. He also said he would not make his daughter part of any protest. Here's what I find to be very interesting about Wendy Williams' comments regarding the National Anthem. Wendy, where was your commentary about this? Now, according to the U.S. flag code, that we are supposed to stand and face the flag if there's one. Civilians should stand to attention with their right hand over their heart, and military personnel in uniform and veterans should salute throughout. That was Donald Trump, the president, sitting here directing, waving to people, all fidgety. Hand over heart? No. Melania, yeah, but not Trump. But here's the other deal, Wendy. Did you watch the Super Bowl? And when Demi was singing, were you standing up at home? Or were you like 99% of the people who watched the Super Bowl sitting on your ass? See, here's what I find to be offensive, Wendy. That you would intimate and essentially say that Jay-Z and Beyonce can leave if they don't like it. I recall reading Jackie Robinson's book, I Never Had It Made. And he titled the book, I Never Had It Made, because he said, as long as there's one African American who is not fully free, I never had it made. And Jackie Robinson explained in the book why he doesn't salute the flag and why he doesn't sing the national anthem and why he doesn't say the Pledge of Allegiance. Because he talked about, in his book, the pain, the racial hatred of what he had to endure. Now, there are people who say, oh, but that was Jackie, but you didn't have to endure that. But see, every time an African American is beaten by a cop, there's a U.S. flag is on that uniform. So should we ignore that? See, we all don't actually have to do those things. We actually have the right to protest if we want to, Wendy. And then for you to say that, oh, these were the first songs you remember singing and you remember going to see the Liberty Bell and going to see the White House. Well, your parents are graduates of HBCUs. I'm sure they taught you when the White House was built by slaves. I'm sure when you went to go see the Liberty Bell, they explained to you that when that bell was rung, it wasn't for us. See, it's real easy, Wendy, to sit in your position and then play this, oh, I'm such an American. When there's some real fundamental issues that people have when it comes to what's happening in this country. It's always amazing to me how many people are so patriotic. And they say it's disrespectful to the military and first responders. You know what I say is disrespectful to the military and first responders? When we don't even understand why we even fight. People say that they're fighting for our freedoms. Well, exactly what freedoms are those? I recall that if you talk about the freedoms in the Constitution, there's the First Amendment, which allows for us to actually protest, allows for us to actually assemble. It's first for a reason. It's before the second with the guns. It's before the third and the fourth and the fifth and the 16th. It's before all the additional amendments. It was first for a reason. But see, Wendy, when you play this little game and trying to be, oh, I'm so patriotic, why don't you actually use your platform and tell your audience about American history? Why don't you use your platform, Wendy, during Black History Month to tell your audience about the black men who were lynched in their uniforms? Why don't you tell your audience, Wendy, about the black men who fought in train depots with white men, white soldiers, as they got back from Germany? Individuals who they were so-called fighting on the same side against racism and bigotry against Germany, against the Japanese. Why don't you talk about the hell that black soldiers had to pay, Wendy, in the military? Why don't you talk about during Black History Month how black people have had to love a country that did not love them? Why don't you talk about civil servants who work in the federal government, who work for the Treasury Department and the Secret Service and the FBI, and who had to file racial discrimination lawsuits against this very government? Why don't you talk about the hell that black folks endure right now working in public policy? See, it's amazing to me how we always want to talk about the national anthem and celebrate the flag, but don't want to say a damn thing when people are using the same system against us. I want to know, Wendy, when will you talk about that in your Hot Topics? When you will cover any of that in your discussions? When will you talk about the racial inequity and when it comes to income in this country? If we want to talk about the national anthem, Wendy, if we want to talk about the flag, Wendy, let's have a real conversation, a full conversation, and not some petty conversation saying that Jay-Z and Beyonce should leave. No, Wendy, I dare say what Harry Belafonte said when I interviewed him. I asked Harry the question, Harry, you love the South of France. And he said, this is why, he said, I could easily move to the South of France. I can easily go somewhere else. I could easily travel around the world. But he said, I'm staying here to make America be the country she said it was on paper. And what you need to understand, Wendy, is that I don't care what Jay-Z said in response to this and trying to clean it up. What you need to understand, Wendy, is that black people will never be questioned by white people or people like you when it comes to patriotism. Because there have been no greater patriots in this country than black people. There have been no greater patriots than people who have loved a nation that did not love them. And if it means sitting or kneeling, Wendy, damn it, that's what we will do. Because we are going to exercise the freedoms of the First Amendment. Because the black people have actually made the country accept people for really who they are. Do you understand, Wendy, that 2 days ago was the 150th anniversary of the 15th Amendment, which gave black men the right to vote? Yet here, Wendy, we are in 2020, 150 years later, and black people are still dealing with voter ID, still dealing with voter suppression. Please share with me, Wendy, when are you going to have these conversations on your Hot Topics? When are you going to have real conversations about what black folks are dealing with all across this country? Not some silly-ass entertainment stories, Wendy. But I'm talking about stuff of substance. I'm talking about things that actually matter. And so, you want to chastise Jay-Z. And let me also do a fact check, Wendy, because I got to clearly fact check you like I had to do Angela. Wendy, Jay-Z is not an NFL owner. Jay-Z don't own a whole team. He don't own half of a team. He don't own a quarter of a team. He don't own 10%, 5%, 1%, 0.1% of a team. So please, if you're going to go on television chastising somebody, please use Google first. Now is not the time, Wendy, for black people with platforms to use them who are flat out wrong. And you are wrong. And so maybe, Wendy, you should pick the phone up and call folk like me before you open your mouth. Now, see, I told you this last time, and you had me on the show, and let's just be real honest. Y'all had me on the show because you and your then husband called me because y'all lost $2 million in sponsorship, and y'all needed to clean that thing and stop the dam before more money walked out of the door, if we really want to spill some tea. Let's be real. And remember, Wendy, I got receipts. Because when I spoke in Florida, I met your daddy. And your daddy thanked me for setting you straight about your comments about HBCUs and the NAACP, Wendy. See, I got receipts, Wendy. So if you want to have a discussion, Wendy, on your show about black people and protest and the National Anthem, you got my number. But please use your platforms to properly educate folks and not live in a fog of ignorance. Wendy. All right, folks. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar you give goes to support what we do to make this show possible. This is a show that is unbought, unbossed. We are independent. We are black owned. That's why it's important for you to support what we do. These other folks, I didn't wait for them to give me a show. I said we're going to create our own and have our own platform to say what is needed, and that's what we do. So we need your support. I want to thank all of you who have given to us right here on YouTube. Thank you so very much. Anybody else out there, Cash App, PayPal, Square, you name it. We want 20,000, y'all. I just want y'all to understand, 20,000 of our followers. If we get 20,000 of our followers to give $50 each for the whole year, $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day, whole show's paid for. We can hit the campaign trail and broadcast from South Carolina when they have the debate in the primary there. We can be in Georgia. We can be in Mississippi and Alabama. Because let me just be real clear. Got these other black shows out, these other black websites, they ain't out here doing this stuff. I mean, they got a couple of people. I'm talking about having these type of conversations every single day. We got 1,000 y'all on Facebook right now, 3,000 of y'all on YouTube right now. We got folks on Periscope. We need your support to make this possible. Now, we broadcast last 2 days the Congressional Black Caucus Emergency Leadership Summit. No other black media covered it. No other black media. Nobody else did. So when this show ends, and I want all of you and again, the 3,000 on YouTube, the 1,000 on Facebook, the more than 100 on Periscope, I want you to sign right back, because we're going to play for you with Reverend Dr. William Barber. What he said, the Congressional Black Caucus, the nearly 1,000 people who were assembled for that summit. Y'all, you see what Donald Trump is doing. You see what the Republicans are doing. We have got to have a place where we are not bogged down talking about no silly-ass entertainment stuff, talking about just sports stuff. We have got to have a place that's bringing the news and information that we need. So please support what we do. Thanks a bunch. I'll see you guys tomorrow.